Yo, 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 yo. How many times can I say yo in the intro before it's too much, Chris? Hello and
15.
welcome to the Lenko Show. Back with me and Chris again. And today, a special guest, Nick Davis. Nick Davis from Preston. He's joined us all the way from Preston via Zoom. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, I'm golden, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good. So, just a
Beautiful.
little bit of a beef. Why am I even talking about beef? A little bit of a, no, brief. Brief was what I was trying to say. That was the word I wanted. A little bit of a brief background on Nick is that you worked with Chris for quite a while.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit together at the minute. He's my personal trainer. I'm a personal trainer with a personal trainer.
You know,
Yeah,
how trainers need trainers.
Yeah, I'm a coach who likes a coach.
Everyone needs to be held accountable to a degree, don't they? So,
Absolutely.
So you've worked with Chris for a little while.
Yeah.
And you're currently in training, or you are a PT, qualified PT?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I'm a self-employed personal trainer, yeah.
Yeah, and being on a pretty mad journey yourself as well.
Yeah, to be fair, pretty much you could say that. I think it's got a little bit of a more different background than your average personal trainer, if you will. To be fair, yeah.
We will dig into that as we get going. The first thing that we want to go through, though, we've got a couple of little bits that we need to tighten up as normal around here and just bring in a bit of common sense. So, first thing, Nick, you're a big fan of the ketogenic diet for sports performance, yes?
Yeah, all for it, mate. Absolutely. If you're not doing it now, you need to. No, I'm taking the piss. No. No, it's not something I would advise. I can see certain benefits for your endurance athletes who predominantly are aerobic based. However, for 95% of the population, I would say stay clear. That's just my personal opinion. There's a lot, probably one of the main diets as well, where the amount of peddled misinformation is just borderline ridiculous. So no, I'd probably say stay away from me for keto.
Well, welcome to the fitness industry anyway.
Yeah, literally.
For anyone that was kind of doubting themselves for a second there, thinking, hold on, has Lenko lost his shit here? There was a massive dose of sarcasm, just to be clear. We're not backing ketogenic diet for sports performance. So don't worry about it. You don't need to change what you're doing. Keep at it. Also, like you've also had an absolute megaton of caffeine coming into this. Me and Chris basically don't really need to say a word, do we? We just need to wind you up a little bit.
Just poke and prod and just watch what comes out of my mouth. It'll be terrifying. I'm in quite a heavily caffeinated state. I've been been trying to moderate my caffeine intake because I've got ADHD, which you will, as Chris knows, but you will come to find out in the next hour or so. And the last thing it does need is more stimulation. But such as we are, I'm here and wired in.
I must say, like just looking at you and my brother, if you're watching this on YouTube and you go, right, 2 out of these 3 are brothers, I've got to say, Chris, like you've lost me, haven't you?
You know what? I've actually been told that before. So I don't know.
I've had that.
Have you?
Yeah, I remember it like Total Fitness, like when you used to PT there. A couple of people said it. But yeah, someone else has said that recently. I think it's more like over Zoom, to be honest. Like in person, I'm far bigger, so so you'll be able to tell the difference. No, but yeah, I've had that a couple of times. To be fair.
So all we need to do is just push, prod, poke, wind them up a little bit. Chris, if you've got any questions or anything that you think will really wind him up and set him off, let's go. First thing I want to say to you, eccentric isometrics, go.
So I don't know too much about this kind of stuff. Well, not what I do know is kind of I've seen it peddled from Instagram accounts such as Joel Seedman. If anyone's familiar with the lovely gentleman, which is Joel Seedman, it seems to get called out left, right, and centre by every credible strength and conditioning coach going through eccentric isometric training being essentially the stuff he talks about being bollocks, basically, around these ideas. So, around the idea of eccentric isometric. So, yeah, it's not something I'm going to include in my programming anytime soon or for the clients. So, but each to their own. To be fair, an old mentor, well, you could call him a mentor. So when I work with Callum Fell, he's got a master's in strength and conditioning. He actually showed me him, and I actually see people sometimes in the gym doing exercises like what you just mentioned. And I think you've been watching Joel Seedman thinking that's right, because it's pretty easy if you don't know kind of what you're looking for to fall into traps like that. I call them like almost fall into the realm of TikTok exercises, don't they? Where looks quite interesting. You put a few sentences in there which could make it sound really fancy, and before you know it, people are buying into it. So yeah, but no, not something too keen. He seems to get called out quite a lot, like I said, by a lot of credible strength and conditioning coaches. So, and then he blocks them as well, actually, because he sells these ebooks for hundreds of pounds, gets called out, and then just blocks them. So when someone's blocking you, not trying to defend what they're doing, and just resorting straight to the block button, something's going on in it, really. Unfortunately.
I think me and Chris, we were speaking about it last week, weren't we, on the last episode, and we were just referring to them the basically eccentric, isometric, concentric. Like it's not unless you're going to stay there forever.
Yeah,
you can't ignore the third phase of the movement, can you? So
yeah,
otherwise known as tempo reps.
Yeah.
Why overcomplicate? Yeah. Unless you want to sell an ebook for like $300.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's just a way to try and jazz something up and pattern it up and sell, basically. And I think that's what, sadly, the fitness industry. I was thinking about this before. It's something we could probably touch on later on. The fitness industry has an amazing way of recycling similar sort of what can we call them? Similar sort of programs, if you will, or whatever, and changing a few things and just reselling them on. And it does it with like the diet industry, whatever you want to call it, nutrition. It does it in all walks of life. A massive one at the minute is this hybrid training, which you're seeing going around, which is CrossFit. It's CrossFit. So yeah, just wash, rinse and repeat, rename it some kind of thing. And then, yeah. But, fitness for you, I suppose, isn't it? The minefield, what it is. Not that I'm against that style of training, by the way. I think it can be quite fun. But yeah.
Well, I think everything has its place, doesn't it? But it's just has it got? If you're training for something specific, you need some form of structure, don't you?
100%. Yeah.
I know that you're a massive runner, so we'll touch on that definitely when we get into
it.
That won't just be a case of, I'm just going to go out this weekend and run 50 miles. Or
maybe it has been known to happen. The last Chris has been known to happen. I've done a bit of the old daft shit as well, but yeah, we'll get on that a bit later
on. The next bit of housekeeping that I wanted to get into. So where's this going? I need to pull this up in my notes. Right. So Austin Killips. You can Google this if you want.
Yeah.
This is a story that I saw pop up the other day. Chris, feel free to interject at any point as well. Austin Killips has become the first transgender athlete to win a UCI women's stage race at the Tour of the Gila in New Mexico. The 27-year-old American won stage 5 on Sunday to clinch the overall title, plus the Queen of the Mountains jersey for the best climber. And this is a cyclist who, I want to say, was a man, is a male, and has transitioned to become a competitor in the female category in cycling, and has gone and won a stage race.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously this can be quite a sensitive subject. We are living in a time.
Sensitive for who?
Yeah, well, that's it. After that, that's it. It's it can be. We're living in a time where it's easy to offend someone, and I find this one quite ironic, especially in the sport that it's in cycling, as we see the advantages of having excess testosterone in your system, along with other PEDs, over a 10-year period in Lance's kind of period, where I think if you had to test the field where Lance was competing in the Tour de France and stuff, you would have got to around place 20 before you'd have got someone clean. So to try and kind of justify that the athlete here in question doesn't have any advantage whatsoever is quite ridiculous. Is a bit ridiculous, isn't it? And I think it's a little bit of a mockery to women's sport. It's sports got meant to be competitively fair, if that makes sense. And it doesn't seem very fair to me. And I remember I've had a couple of debates back and forth with people about when kind of trans athletes were, say, who was formerly a man, were then competing in women's sport, and I know they're taking drugs to like decrease testosterone and etc. And one of my responses was, wait till we start getting some real world data. And I think some of the data is becoming quite conclusive now. We're getting athletes who are very, could say, average at the top level when they were competing, say, formerly as a man, then going and transitioning into a woman and then competing as a woman, and the winning by considerable distances. So I think there's just been a bill passed in the last couple of days in America where I think trans sport is going to kind of have its own realm, and it's not going to be allowed to kind of happen, which for the sake of women's sport, and I hope to have a daughter one day who is in competitive sport, well, not competitive, but does sport, and if she ends up being competitive, brilliant, and I'd like it to be fair. So kind of that's my opinion on that, and if that upsets anyone, then so be it.
Chris, do you want to upset anyone, or do you just want to should we just try and get Nick into a hole where he's upsetting everyone?
He will do that himself. We'll just give him time. We'll give him time.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with that completely. I think it needs to be made as fair as it can be to show that it's not a case of who's had an advantage in a certain way. It's like if you're trying to find who's the best at something, it's who's put in the work and has become the best, rather than, well, this person was fucking always going to win based on these factors if they followed this plan.
Yeah.
So.
I
Yeah.
suppose that, like sport, you need a level playing field, don't you? And if you accept there are biological differences between male and
100%,
then you have to understand that simply being male offers a physiological advantage, no matter how early you transition. And if you think that transitioning before the age of 10 or 12 or whatever is acceptable, then that's just child abuse.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a different.
I do think
a different ballgame altogether. But yeah,
when it's like, if it's just like low level sport, or I don't know what you'd call it, like mid level sport or something like that, that's not crazy competitive, then it's absolutely fine. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're going towards the top end and the elites, you are going to see those differences like conclusively.
See, I'm going to disagree with you that it's not even in mid level to low level competitive sport. So I've got a couple of my female athletes. They've been playing against a team which features quite a few trans footballers, and those trans athletes have literally caused injuries to opposition players, which typically you probably wouldn't expect or you wouldn't have, because the natural born female players simply do not generate as much force as these guys that are running around pretending to be women and
pretending to be women.
Honestly, well, they're not women either. They're not actual.
I think
female. They're not women. They're not adult human females. They are men who are dressing up and trying to live their life like a woman, but they're not women. They're not women.
I think there's
I personally, I don't care who I offend. So if
you've just opened the Nick Davis door.
No, but like I think, for going back to what you're just saying, touching on what you said, Chris, and then kind of where you come in, Alex, where you're saying, Chris saying let's call it a novice level. But like I think we see that, and like I've been in CrossFit boxes where obviously there will be a WOD-on workout of the day, and what makes it so competitive and so enjoyable to a degree, and as it's so inclusive, is that you will all be doing, say, this WOD, this workout of the day, competing against each other in like more of a friendly setting. However, the females can compete with the men because they aren't moving as much weight. Like the RX is different. Do you know what I mean? So usually females are at 15 kilogram, males are at 22 kilogram, but the movements will be the same. Do you know what I mean? Because if in most cases, if you, for example, get a female to do the exact same workout, with the exact same weight as, say, a man, the man is usually going to win. Does that make sense? And that might not because the man is a better CrossFit athlete. It's just because he can move more weight more efficiently, etc. Do you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, there's always going to be that an advantage there, isn't there, from that aspect? So I think to touch on it, and I hope you don't mind me saying, look at your colleague Chris Alanis. I don't know what her max power clean is. She's an incredible athlete, first and foremost. She's been Olympic weightlifting as part of her sport, CrossFit, for quite a while. And she's a brilliant lifter, a great athlete. I've been doing it half the time, but I think I've got a heavier clean than her. And it's not because I'm a better power clean. I'm just able to move a little bit more weight because I have certain, biological advantages. So I think that just try and keep it as fair as we can. That's what makes sport amazing. There's an element of fairness there, isn't there?
Yeah. The other thing that I would add to what I was saying before is that I've spoken to my athletes and like what their take on it is, like just generally being quite open about it, because I don't know, when I'm having conversations with them, they might be on the other side of it where they're very accepting and they want more people playing the sport with them that are transitioning or But I asked them what it was like, and they legit just said it's like playing with men.
Yeah.
If it's like playing with men, and they used to be male, it's very difficult to say, oh well, that's still fair, it's fine, carry on. And I think when you see certain people like that flying to the top, and I think in a participation event, like if I was to go down to the local tennis club with my missus and have a game of tennis with her, cool, that's fine, because I'm not going to beat the shit out of her. It's not a full, I mean, it's a competition in my head, but it's not like I'm getting a trophy at the end of it, or I'm getting.
You've not sacrificed potentially decades of your life to train into a certain sport, and then because that's what's happening at the highest level, by the way. Like the highest level, but thankfully now it's not going to happen by the looks of things through certain athletic commissions, but people have give their life to whatever sport it is, and it was just being dismantled in front of them. They was never ever going to achieve what they wanted to achieve, which for most athletes is to win either a gold medal or whatever the pinnacle is of that sport. And is it the swimmer? There was a trans swimmer who literally was night and day, and when they was competing formally as a man, again average in the field. Then the transition happened, and it was night and day. So from second place, so yeah, it's. I just think that there seems to be regulations coming in now, and I think that's the best thing. And like sport being fair, have a trans category, all for it, absolutely all for that, 100%.
Does that mean you've thought about transitioning and you're looking forward to becoming more like above average running?
Yeah, that's that. I think that's the key for me, to be fair. Like I'm running out of time. I'm pushing 30 now, so yeah, possibly. But just the last thing on that, that's essentially what can happen. And I know Piers Morgan divides opinion. I remember watching him on Good Morning Britain, and there were two people. One was kind of against trans athletes, formerly as men transitioning to women competing in women's sport, and the one for it. And he said, so in a nutshell, you would let a woman compete against Floyd Mayweather if he transitioned. And he was like, yeah, and that's where it gets stupid. It just gets stupid. It is stupid. It's not an argument. I actually don't believe the people who are even saying that and suggesting that's going to be fair even believe it. I generally don't think they believe it. I know I don't. Like, that's my opinion. So because I know there is a cage fighter who's transitioned to a woman, and you can Google this, and what's happening in that cage. If it was out on the street, you'd go to prison for a very long time. It's as close to a Section 18, which is grievous bodily harm, as you will see in a cage. That's the worrying thing, especially in like sports, combat sports, where people die. So, just obviously, the governing bodies or athletic commissions just need to kind of intervene, which they seem to have done, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, what do we think to trans people playing darts?
All for it, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a darts.
I have a controversial opinion on that. I don't think darts and darts, snooker. I think they're incredible. Like, takes a great amount of practice, great amount of skill. I always feel like sport. It's like an athletic endeavor almost. Like, I've not seen many prime athletes walk in and be able to knock 10 pints out and perform still. Like, that's just that might not go down with people who are massive fans of snooker and darts and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like, I remember watching a documentary on snooker greats, and Alex Higgins used to like turn up levered and just walk away with like tame people.
I just want to clean up a couple of bits in this. So, like, Chris, you suggested darts in the first one. I think darts is actually pretty much an open category anyway. I think, is it?
Yeah.
Shorrocks? Can't remember. I don't know many darts player. There is a darts player who is she is like full on competing with men.
Yeah.
In that situation, and then with regards to snooker, I think snooker could easily be the same, like, because it's purely skill, like it's not physical effort per se. I think when you're referring to like being able to just like what is a sport and categorizing that, and you said about Alex Higgins knocking down like 10 pints, maybe we've got it wrong all the way through.
Yeah.
Sports performance, maybe. Like, you look at some of the greatest athletes ever. Alex Higgins, obviously snooker player, high demand of skill in his sport, getting absolutely level. Ronnie O'Sullivan, I've no doubt, probably on a couple of occasions, has been doing.
I know Ronnie's been in treatment. I know he's been in. I've seen a documentary. He's been in treatment. I don't know if he drinks anything now, but I know he's been in like a rehab and stuff.
Yeah. Then so, more of the physical sport. George Best.
Paul Gascoigne.
Man, I didn't know. Paul Gascoigne. Diego Maradona.
Yeah.
What was he?
Yeah.
Tiger Woods. Even just on medication and he probably had all kinds of other shit going on.
Well, yeah, I can imagine he's with the state of his back and stuff. He's been on some pretty heavy painkillers.
Tyson Fury.
Yeah, Tyson Fury. Yeah.
Are there any motorsport athletes we can think of that have been?
I think I think this is like, again, going off on a little bit of a tangent and sidestepping a few things. Like, people have this kind of conception of elite level sport being healthy, and it's not. Like, I've about dropping anyone in the shitty. I've got a friend who's very good friends with a professional footballer, and like, they're some of these fellas, like, they're on a lot of pain medication to get through 90 minutes consistently twice a week, and the sort of stuff they're taking, it's not paracetamol. You know, it's some of it's drugs what belong in the same, like heavy opiates and stuff. So, you know, it's and like, some days I won't mind a couple of opiates myself when I'm squatting, which stay to my hips now. Like, it's you know, like, when you're performing in a sport, especially at the highest level, your body's going through it. So, like, it is just another thing. Like, it's not the healthiest thing in the world. So
I actually always try and explain it as like a circular continuum. So if you imagine like this, and there's always, you've got obviously sickness, which is obviously the perceived like negative side, like unfit and all that. And then you've got wellness, then you've got fitness, and then you've got like any elite sports performers or athletes or whatever is like the opposite side, because you are closer to sickness, again, being absolutely at the top level, because you have to sacrifice so much other stuff, and you have to be like teetering with the idea that you probably can hurt yourself. If you're a top performer, you're probably going to hurt yourself training in some way, injure yourself.
100%.
Imagine you're ready to get on stage for your next bodybuilding show.
Yeah, it's like, but that's something that I found out in like my last marathon prep, where it's kind of like, I like understanding, like, saying an athlete's season, especially at the elite level, just the ability to not get sick is massive. Like I remember I got COVID, I think 5 weeks out, and like obviously I work in a commercial gym, and so I'm more exposed to germs and stuff like that. And I remember just thinking, my head was in my hands. And my goal at the time, I remember speaking to you, Chris. Like I wasn't in the best place mentally. It looked absolutely shot to pieces. Now take the pressure of. I felt like a bit of pressure on myself because that's how I kind of work. I put pressure on myself to get a task done. But like, imagine if you're an athlete with a boxer who he's got one fight this year, he's only going to get paid after it, gets ill in his camp, and it's like, it's mad, isn't it? Like, it's one of the key things for an athlete is like just the ability to not get sick. And with the amount of training volume and intensity of what your elite level athletes will do, especially with like boxers and stuff like that, you are prone to sickness. Do you know what I mean? Your immune system can end up getting compromised, you end up getting exhausted and all that kind of which I've done multiple times throughout my training, my years of training, which actually isn't the greatest amount of time compared to other people. But it's again, that's where you learn about how to train effectively and properly, if you will, for certain, let's say, athletic endeavors. So yeah.
I think this is where there's like a bit of a blend between the elite sport and then sub elite or even semi-professional. So like obviously we're referring to like the best of the best in the elite category. I think when it's your job, it's what you do day in, day out. You get hundreds of thousands for it per year, if not per week.
Yeah.
You can afford, like, you're not doing anything else. Like your job is
to
look after in your body. You've got a team or an army of people doing it for you. You get everything you could possibly ever want. I think at that point it becomes a little bit easier to stay on top of your health, your recovery, ultimately maintain that level of wellness that you referred to, Chris.
Yeah.
When you dip out of that, and if you were to go into, like, let's say the lower leagues of the football pyramid, or the not necessarily the prize fights in boxing, but if you were to come down a level from that, where it's the big pay-per-view stuff, and you're essentially more responsible for yourself, I think at that point it becomes 10 times more difficult. And also, like, it's still equally as valuable. Like your livelihood, your finances, your future basically depends on it. Your career depends on it. But there's a lot of pressure at that level, and it's on you. You're on your own. You've got to go and build your own team. You've got to get your own people with you doing the right things. And then even below that, in the semi-professional world, I think it's even harder. I think there where you've got very limited resources, very limited time, equal amounts of competition, competitive stress. And then you work in a day job as well. I think that's above and beyond. So I honestly have maximum respect for any semi-professional athletes that train and play to a very, very high level. So
absolutely,
I think you're right. Absolutely. Though the more you work, the more you train, the more you beat your body up, the closer you get to that sickness aspect. And
100%. And like, that's where like sometimes you just end up exhausted. And like there's like they say, don't there's that exhaustion phase. And I had he was one of my very good friends, and a client when I first started personal training. He's still a very good friend of mine now, and like he had other issues as well. But like he was trying to drop body fat. He was considerably overweight at the time. He's lost quite a little bit of weight now, and the amount of training volume and intensity in his week, and he couldn't, like, I had to sit him down once because he come in anxious, depressed, and I'm like, this is burnout, this is exhaustion, because obviously, like, that's something people tend to do. They ramp up training volume and intensity, combine the two together, and they're doing that in like a calorie deficit, and then before they know it, they're absolutely cooked. And this is something I've done myself, where like I hit like that exhaustion and I'm an anxious wreck. I feel like low, depressed. And it's because they're just exhausted. You're just exhausted, and so many people do that. It's quite concerning, to be fair.
I think one of the big things that I always say to my guys now that I learned last year, so fresh, because it's so natural when you're preparing for something, like to. I know a lot of people kind of overestimate where they're at, but a lot of people also underestimate where they're at, and they want to do everything they can to prepare.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel you've done enough, you start doing more and more and more. And I think a lot of people, athletes included, Gen Pop absolutely so, naturally think I need to be doing more to get myself as ready as I can. Whereas actually, it was actually Dewey that sat me down last year, and he said to me, "You can only grow or get better through what you actually recover from."
Yeah.
So you don't make the gain, so to speak, or get better doing the actual workout or doing the lift or whatever. It's when you recover from it afterwards. And so just the actual doing of doesn't help you at all. I mean, it's more experience, I guess, but you're not getting any better. You are literally breaking yourself.
People that's it, just like, sorry, not like they're going on, they're just always adding frequency and trying to match the frequency with ridiculous levels of intensity, and sometimes it's just they've just been misinformed. They might have seen something in an article about how X person trains. Let's just say Cristiano Ronaldo, how he trains, and they think, well, I'll do that. And 9 times out of 10, I can promise you, Cristiano Ronaldo is not doing that. So yeah, like a massive, like I've been around semi-pro cage fighters quite a bit, boxers as well, and I see it so much in combat sports because obviously these guys are making weight as well, and they're like they're trying to make weight, and they're like hitting 3 sessions per day, whilst making weight, and it's like, my God, like there's no way on God's green earth are you at your best when you get in that cage or that ring. There's just no way. There's no way. It's crazy. So yeah, obviously what you just touched on there, Chris, like Jerry's absolutely bang on. Do you know what I mean? And like I went for a period myself where it was just frequency, high volume, in trying to match it with intensity. Every single time I would fuck.
So what? Just talk us through that, because obviously we'll get into this more when we actually start speaking. We've done like half an hour already without actually speaking much about your training and what you do. A lot of running, run quite a few marathons.
Yeah.
And ultras as well, is that right?
Yeah, but you've hit a couple, 3 ultras. Yeah, 3 ultras. Yeah.
Just talk us through sort of like that training phase where you were getting it wrong, where you were hitting high volume, high intensity, lack of recovery. Just talk us through that. What was it like? So, like for me, training's kind of been something. I'm in long-term recovery from drugs and alcohol. I'm 6 years, but I will be, touch wood, 6 years off drugs and alcohol come August. And I always grew up in school. I was like the chubbier kid. It never really affected me in sport, to be fair. Like I was never the last who picked up football. Like I wasn't too bad. Some mates, if you end up listening to this, will end up going, "You lying bastard, you were crap." But no, I wasn't actually too bad. I seemed to pick sport fairly easy, but I just always carried like a little bit more body fat than say my friends. And then I got into a lot of trouble with drinking and drugs, and as you do, I had my first heartbreak at about 18 because when I was drinking and taking drugs, I weren't living the best. I put on quite a bit of weight in between leaving school and going into my college years. I put on quite a bit of weight through just poor lifestyle choices, which is quite obviously going to be quite common when you abuse alcohol and drugs. Anyway, I ended up breaking up with a girl, and I just fell into running. I was in quite a little bit of trouble in my local area because of consequences of drinking and taking drugs, and I went for a run. I thought I need to lose some weight. I'm just going to go for a run, and it was one of the only times that I felt safe, if I'm honest with you, which is like quite strange. So I just continued to go, and that kind of fell into a little bit of an addiction, if you will, where I'd run twice a day in the morning and at night. And I remember running myself, I was only about 18, running myself to like 9.5 stone with a kidney infection. So kind of, I've always had, you could say, an addictive personality, and running even through like the height of my alcohol and drug use, which was bad. Like I've been to a rehab, and I've been in hospital multiple times, and I'd always somehow run.
because I'd stop drinking for a week or two. I'd be like, I'm never doing that. I'd just go running and stuff like that. And it was always kind of my backbone. Once I kind of got clean and found recovery, if you will, it was I just kind of fell into the gym like most people. I've always trained though. I always trained back then for aesthetics or to lose weight and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's when I first met you, wasn't it, Chris, at like Total Fitness, where there was a period where I got clean in the August of 2017. Like I was just doing like chest day, arm day, that kind of stuff. The running as and when I can. It was nothing like no heart rate zones. I just used to run. And I was only like 23 at the time, so quite a bit younger. And I used to be able to get away with it. I wouldn't feel any kind of negative effect on my mental, like kind of my, what could I say, like it never used to really affect me physically or mentally or no exhaustion or like that. But I always still had that association of more or better. But I left Total Fitness for a bit and I come back in the new year because I went to another gym. And that's when, like, I think you and, was it Tom, Chris? Like, you went, what the fuck have you been doing? You look completely different. Because I've just been lifting and running. So I just, like, for me back then, it was always more was better. I didn't understand, like what you just talked about, where Dewey said, like, you can only adapt what you recover from. That wasn't really a concept to me. It was just balls to the wall, work, and hope for the best. And again, I've always like borderline, you could say, body dysmorphia and bad relationship with food. Like I've always used to strive to live in a deficit and all that. So, but where like you were talking about when it kind of got a bit mixed up, where I was just training so frequently and so intensely, was when I kind of fell into CrossFit. That's when I did lose the plot. And like you say, you met them mistakes. You just don't know any better. And it only recently, well, I say recently, it's up until about, I'd say, becoming a personal trainer. I've kind of learned the hard way, if you will. Yeah, so I've got that's kind of like a little bit of background about that, to be fair. But yeah, I had to like learn the hard way. Because I prepped for so many different things, really, without having a clue what I was doing. And I got away with it. And if I'm honest, it's the last 2 years. Like I wouldn't say I'm the most genetically gifted person. I'm a personal trainer. I'm not afraid to admit has good months, has bad months. I've had many sleepless nights worrying about how I can pay my bills. So I'm not genetically gifted. And it was like I just was not recovering the same from like the amount of training volume and frequency that I used to do. So that's kind of when I had to, hire coaches and learn how to do it properly.
What was your average training week like? When you were going through this phase of more is better.
Yeah.
You were getting out for a run in the morning, run in the evening.
Yeah. That's how that started. Obviously, I was about 18 years old. Not a shred of muscle on me as well. But then, like, say, to kind of take you from when I actually started taking training more serious, say training was a part of my life, which was when I entered recovery at like 23. It used to look a little bit like, I'll take you back pre-COVID, when we started to, just before we went into that first lockdown. I'd get up, I would hit a run as intensely as I could. And then there was this class on it.
Any particular distance?
Usually 5K. Yeah. Usually 5K. I just go out and try and hit a 5K PB every single run. I remember once you guys were, Chris, you were doing the marathon, you, Dewey and Waz. And you was like doing, I remember you like talking about running slower, like doing zone 2 runs and stuff. And you said what that particular day it was a 14-mile run or something in zone 2 or whatever it were. I just went and did 14 miles. I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk for like 3 days after. So like, it just. But then like, I'd do like a 5K in the morning, and then at this CrossFit gym I used to go to, Unit 4, which is a brilliant gym, by the way. Great coaches, great people. They had like a sweat class on, where it's like, you could call it like metabolic conditioning, if you will, which is a different subject altogether. if you want to pick the holes in that type of stuff. But and then I do one of them, and then I go back in the evening and do like the actual CrossFit class which was on for the day, or go and lift some weights and or what have you. And I do that quite a few times a week. So I used to work a shift as a support worker, so I'd have like 2 days in work and then 3 days off at times. So I just cram all that within 3 days. I wasn't really fueling myself properly, and I've actually got a picture on my Instagram. I look so ill. Like I just look like I'm quite naturally. Well, I am enhanced from the sunbeds, to be fair, but I'm quite naturally a tan lad. But I generally look like I'm back on drugs. I just the life was sucked out. I remember doing one particular workout. I used to go at CrossFit Saturdays. It was such a buzz. It was like just the maddest workout you can think of. And everyone would get after it, which was so enjoyable. But like a few days before, like Joel, the movement Devil's Press.
Yeah.
I was fine moving through it.
Explain that for anyone that might not know it though.
So it's like a burpee into a snatch, in it, Chris. Yeah, with a dumbbell. So maybe so I was using 22.5 kilogram dumbbell. And so I did it a few days earlier, absolutely fine. Done a few more days of kind of how I was training. I just described how I was training. Got to the Saturday and I physically couldn't get this dumbbell above my head. I was that tired. I could not get I had to clean and jerk it instead of snatch it. I think it was clean and jerk. I had to it was just terrible. I just could not physically do a proper rep of this particular, whether it was a devil press or clean jerk. I can't remember. I want to say devil press, but yeah, I was just completely flatlined. I was just exhausted, and that's how I trained for years. For years until I become a personal trainer and walked into an independent gym with I'd probably say some really intelligent people, and it was like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? I used to be I've just not got stronger for years. And it's like, yeah, well, no wonder. So I'm just going to turn my phone off. There we go. Sorry, go on.
So literally three sessions a day.
Yeah, not uncommon.
Sweat session after that, and then a WOD again in the evening.
I'd just go and lift.
Just they're enough on their own. They're enough to break you down a little bit. And
100%. 100%, yeah. Or sometimes I'd just go and do maybe a bodybuilding routine. Might be a push, pull, or lower. That's something else. Even in my say you could say strength sessions, I just stick 100 kg on a squat bar and do 10 sets of 10 until I couldn't walk. It'd just be ridiculous, and wonder why I end up with absolutely trash back, amongst other issues.
Yeah. So literally going in with the objective of breaking yourself down.
Yeah, just that mentality of more is better. Do you know what I mean? Whatever way you look at more, whether it was more frequency or more intensity or both of them, just going. Do you know what I mean? So
I think a lot of places and industries would have you believe that is the way to go as well. I know we were talking about hybrid stuff recently. People take pride in doing red line work.
Yeah.
Just who can go the hardest in a workout. And it's just a mad workout that unless you are actually going to need or use those movements, you probably have no reason to be doing them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've currently from just doing the Manchester Marathon, and beforehand, I've had a few people who want to do strength training and running together, and they've come to me and they'll be asking me about what metcons should they be doing, and I'm like, what do you mean? Or Joe, not even metcon, because obviously a metcon is, the idea behind it is it's metabolic conditioning. If you don't know what a metcon is, and kind of the three metabolic pathways it's focusing on, is it anaerobic glyolactic, creatine for phosphate system, anaerobic glyolactic, and the oxidative. Am I right with that, Alex?
Yep.
Yeah. So trying to condition all them pathways. Now, to do that in just one workout is pretty hard anyway, because whatever you do for your oxidative is not going to complement your glyolactic and creatine for phosphate. Is that right?
Glycolytic and ATP.
Yeah, glyolactic. Yeah. So that's a different argument altogether. And I'm like, why are you worried about kind of how many metcons a week you should be doing when you want to run long distance? What are you going to do like mile 20? I'm fucked, but it's fine because I can dumbbell snatch for time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crackers, isn't it? And put like a laugh because like I've done that. It's like it's all right because I can do 30 snatches unbroken. Crackers, isn't it? Like, but yeah.
I think that's the difference. So, like, I know anyone that I know that is a fitness enthusiast, everyone, we've all been in those situations where we've gone, do you know what? Fuck it. Let's redline it. Let's abuse ourselves for an hour or 40 minutes or whatever. And like, it is a bit of an addiction, isn't it? Like, you are aiming to break yourself sometimes when you, you know, even for sports performance athlete, that might be okay once in a while, but ultimately, like, you've got to think, well, what's your actual outcome? What's your main target? So, you know, we're saying, like, you know, you went with the philosophy of more is better. Well, if you were to elaborate on that, more is actually, it's not better, it's just more. Like, if you're doing more of the same stuff and just beating yourself into a slightly deeper hole, making it harder to climb out, that's not going to be productive. But what I would say is more can be better if you structure it with the correct in partnership. So you're saying there, like, for instance, runners, distance runners, if you're going out doing your long run and then you're going into the gym and smashing a metcon, hitting similar energy systems, what's the point? You're just doing more of the same, and it gets to the point like where you say you get to mile 20 and it's like, I'm fucked, but I can dumbbell snatch, that's mint, like, let's go. Whereas if you were to go, right, well, you're going to go and do your long aerobic work in the morning, and then you're going to smash a load of heavy strength training, low reps, but high intensity on the strength. And that doesn't mean like loads of speed or anything. Like, you might just literally do 10 sets of 2 back squats or deadlifts or whatever movement you want to do. And that might be it. That'll be enough. Get strong as hell. So work on the spectrum.
Exactly that. And like, again, like hybrid concurrent training, if you will, is the understanding of it's training kind of opposite ends of the spectrum concurrently, which we have found is possible if you're structuring your training in the right way. But again, such as like the fitness world, if you will, everyone with the understanding as well that sometimes you have trade-offs. So at the minute, I'm trying to PB in a half marathon, and I mean, you were speaking about this the other day, Chris. We pretty much understand that I'm probably not going to get a back squat PB in the next couple of weeks because I'm currently in a deficit. My running like frequency and volume is quite high. Intensity is pretty high as well on certain runs. So I'm not expecting to PB in any lifts anytime soon. But for some reason, we've gone in the fitness injury. It's just gone train for everything at once, progress everything at once. It ain't going to work, especially by just adding, say, a metcon at the end of a bit of strength work and some isolation exercises in a hypertrophy rep range. It doesn't work like that. So it's just getting kind of understanding how you need to get to your goal and doing it the right way. Because again, like, I'm a personal trainer who predominantly works from 6 till 9, goes home, goes back in 5 till 8. In that time, I can nap, I can eat, but like for someone else, like they have to get up, get the kids to school, go to work, deal with everyday stress at work. They might be underslept, and it go back to what we were saying at the start. It's like that semi-professional athlete again, where people are striving to live the lifestyle of an athlete in their training endeavors, especially with this hybrid stuff at the minute, but they don't have the time or kind of the environmental factors, if you will, to do that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just making sure like you're just doing it as well as you possibly can, and like you're never going to kind of you're not going to get everything done all at once. I don't actually believe in a fully optimal training program, if that makes sense. There's always going to have to be a trade-off to a degree. Then you've got to balance the like people have like, I want to do this, but I need to do this trade-off as well. Do you know what I mean? So, but off a bit of a tangent there.
Well, I think it's all relevant. Like, I think, you know, when you're talking about trade-offs, like, you've got to measure up. Like, if you want to get faster, like for any of my footballers that are listening to this, or any of my other athletes that are listening, if you want to get faster, you have to understand that more of your training is going to be directed towards high intensity, medium to low volume, high recovery. Like you're not going to be hitting out longer runs. You're not going to be like, your VO2 max might drop a little bit. And this was something Joe DeFranco found this when he was working a lot of his NFL players, like purely speed and power. Like their game is 3 to 5 seconds, maximal effort, smashing things, breaking away from the opposition. That's literally the job. And then when they test and check the VO2 max, they find out that the VO2 and the general health is in the toilet because they spent so long working that maximal effort, purely focusing on ATP, PC. Then when you go, well, we can probably get bigger returns and bigger performance improvements, maybe even bigger muscle mass gains by training VO2 max a little bit and bringing that up slightly. To then be able to go faster after that. And in that time, you know, your VO2 max might go up, your speed might come down a tiny bit. That is probably going to drop a little bit through the season. You're going to go through peaks and troughs. You're not going to be at constantly high performance, 30 miles an hour, game in, game out. You're never necessarily always going to be able to achieve those levels, but how close?
Exactly that. It's I feel like as well a lot of experience you gain comes down to bad experience. You know, like we've got, like for me, like we're trying to again train for absolutely everything all at once. It just you quickly find out how hard that is to do, and it's pretty much, it's damn near impossible, really, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Without some like at the minute, something I'm trying to do is just be a little bit of a lighter runner. You know, carrying less weight over the distances that I run, which is a pretty smart idea. Because when I was doing the Manchester Marathon, I was looking around me and thinking, I'm a little bit bigger than some of these, and I'm not big by any means, like, but you know, I'm carrying some tissue, excess fat, shall we say, what doesn't need to quite be there at the minute. So,
how much do you weigh? What's your body weight?
265, yeah.
Not in the trap.
80.5 kilos. I am 5'7" as well. 5'7", 5'8". Like, it's not 5'8", so 5'8". Like, it's not the heaviest you're gonna be.
Well, it's not a dating profile. That's fine.
Can I just also say, for anyone who's listening, or if people are looking on YouTube, Nick does, whilst I know you said excess body fat, you also have a surplus of muscle. One of the things that I said to Nick, as a joke, but also it's 100% true, is when you're looking at the people coming through in the marathon. So obviously I went to watch and I was at the finish line. You're looking at these guys that are coming through the finish line, and the ladies, because there were ladies there as well, obviously finishing fast times. Like there's nothing to them. They're bouncing along, and they're tall and thin. They are exactly what you imagine a runner to look like. Tricky Nicky D, he's carrying a bit of muscle on him, and you were by far the most muscular person that I've seen come across that finish line within a 15-minute window of like the 250 to the over 3 hours for sure.
So the guy that finished 15 minutes after you was stacked, basically.
He were huge. He were huge. But yeah, so like obviously I don't like quite want to end up like, because I know like some runners, like your professionals, they literally will just let kind of their upper bodies go to shit, if you will. They won't do any kind of strength training up top. But I don't want to take it that far. But I've got some like, I can chip away a little bit of body fat just to kind of get a little bit lighter, and I'm hoping that will help in it, because I've only got a short amount of time to I'm doing a half marathon in 2 weeks, I think, no, 3 weeks, so coming a little bit light. I'm hoping that will just help me PB in my next half. So like I just said, like obviously I'm in a deficit. I'm running like doing quite a bit of zone 2 work. I've got 2 bits of, I do some intervals on a Wednesday, won't be today though, and then on the weekend I kind of do a run at the pace I want to hit my half, like my goal race pace, if you will. So I'm not expecting to PB on a back squat, for example, in the next couple of weeks, because I'm in a deficit. I'm running quite a bit. Nutrition's quite hard to balance, if I'm honest with you, with it all, because obviously some days, you know, Chris, like I can drop ridiculous amounts of weight in. It's water majority, but like because of the amount of energy expenditure I go for, if you will, I can just end up in ridiculous deficits. So again, making sure I'm in somewhat of a sensible deficit but again, sorry, with all that kind of training frequency, somewhat intensity in a calorie deficit, as sensible as I can possibly get it, I'm not expecting to be in a back squat where I feel like most people, if they was in the kind of trying to do something what I'm doing, they'd be expecting to also PB a back squat or a deadlift or whatever it may be. They're expecting to be stronger, gain muscle, be able to run marathons and etc. all at once whilst being in a deficit. That's what it feels like with this new hybrid stuff at the minute. And I just think like that's why I love people like Fergus Crawley who kind of break it down properly and how it is.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes the issue, isn't it? Where people have multiple goals and they don't realize that those goals are conflicting.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, like I'm going to assume, but your goal is to run a faster half marathon time. And one of the ways to do that is to still be able to back squat heavy, still be able to deadlift heavy. But the goal is to use that to run that faster half marathon time, not to PB or just squat heavy for the sake of squatting heavy.
Yeah, exactly. So
talk us through what's kind of going to be your build up over the next sort of 3 weeks leading into that half marathon. How's that looking?
So at the minute, couple of zone 2 runs a week, and then I potentially will still do my intervals tonight, but me and Chris hit 2 sessions a week, quite a lot within our strength stuff. So a lot of unilateral work in it, Chris, some like stability work and all that sort of stuff. Some lifts what I'm working on more technical at the minute, not just ramping weight up for the sake of it, because obviously I always say this before I go try and get into it. When you are like a hybrid athlete or an athlete in general, your body is an instrument. It's not an ornament. So it's kind of making sure that my body is able to do what I want it to do in 3 weeks' time, and making sure the stuff in my strength sessions is going to be as complementary to that as possible. So so for example, a week is a couple of zone 2 runs. Like I will run a zone 2 run and say a strength workout on the same day. I'll space them apart. I will do my strength stuff before a zone 2 run. But like say if I've got on the same day a strength session and a run at say my race pace goal. So I want to try and do a half marathon averaging 6:20 to 25 minute miles. I will do the run first and then the strength stuff after. However, I'll kind of look at on my runs which are more intense or any days where I have an interval, I will not be doing anything for my lower body. I just find for me, I can't get what I want out of the strength work if I've just caned, say, 800 meter intervals repeats, because they are horrendous. So I've got a run on the Saturday or Sunday, where I'll do 1 hour hopefully at 6:20, 6:25 minute per mile. Kind of that's like my target race pace goal, if you will. So hit that. I will then next week, Monday and Wednesday, like zone 2 runs. Again, I'll do another run. I'll hopefully go a little bit quicker, but I'll take a little bit out of it, a little bit of time out of it. So I may do 50 minutes, 45 minutes, and then the week after I will go for the race, and I'll just taper my training off during the week, so it'll just be pretty much just ticking over zone 2 quite steady. Like it's hard to get like heart rate data what I need, because I've only got a Garmin at the minute. I don't have a heart rate monitor which I need to invest in, so I just base it off like RPE, if you will. Like it'll be like a 3 or 4 RPE, and then I'll go and hopefully PB in my half marathon. But like with like the strength stuff as well, it's I'll sit down with your brother and we'll taper that off on the week, say about 5 days before our race. But for the marathon, it was like 6 days. I think we called it 6 days before. Like literally didn't touch a weight on my lower body 6 days before Manchester Marathon. So I'll also listen to my body as well. If I feel like I need a little bit a longer recovery in between any runs or any sessions, I'll do it. It's as simple as that. Because obviously sometimes you get again in that realm of just hitting a session. It's essentially just junk volume. It doesn't need to be there. You're not getting any benefit from it. I was out on the run the other day. It was zone 2. Had an 80 minutes scheduled in. By about 50 minutes, I could just tell like I was struggling to stay in like that kind of heart rate zone, and I just called it at 50. I thought I'm getting past the point of like, was it diminishing returns, so to speak? Certain things were a little bit achy, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to call this where it is, because it's just about getting to know your body a little bit better. And I think as you get older, that is massive. Because like I don't get away with now than what I did when I was 23. Definitely not. So that's kind of how it will look to a degree.
Has he got that right, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest. I let Nick, we've got the agreement that Nick does all of his running stuff himself. I'm not going to try and touch it. He is a far greater runner than I will ever be. So I don't want to tweak with it or play with it. In terms of the strength stuff that we do, yeah, he knows and I know that the running is the main priority. It's kind of like what you said earlier about like what we want and what we need. We have a lot of fun with what we do, and then we do the stuff that we know we need to be doing in terms of, like you said, stability. And when we're talking strength, we're not talking like PB and back squats. We're talking about like joints, tendons, tissue strength, stuff like that. We're talking about stability and isometric eccentrics, if you will. Making sure that he's in the best possible position in order to get the result that he wants.
Yeah.
And have a little bit of fun as well. We do that too.
Yeah, for the fun.
Can I just to add to that there, just to explain that. So we're talking about that. So sometimes, I want to add, Nick saying about being lighter. I was thinking, which is ironic because the last ultra that he did was in a 10 kilo vest.
20.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, a 20 kilo vest. But I was for a good cause. I didn't realize the reason you were actually wearing that at first. And then aside from that as well, there's the off occasion where we might just have a play, like so Nick did a workout with a really fucking clever guy the other day.
Yeah.
And
you probably know him, to be fair, Alex. He's Chris. He's Chris. He's the head of strength and conditioning at UCLan.
Oh, I feel like I've met him before.
Such a great guy, so intelligent, and I always hover around like coaches who are within strength and conditioning because it's something I want to learn about like massively. And I was like, oh, I bet he'll have a well smart session program for us. This lad, I think we did Hugo Igo, 50 power cleans, 80 key per time, just Hugo Igo. I was like, he's a genius. Like he wrote the master's course for UCLan strength and conditioning. He's like the masters, and that's brilliant. But yeah, it's like, but it was fun. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you've got to have a little bit of fun in there.
What's your target time for the half marathon then?
Anything sub 125. So I actually PB'd it in the Manchester Marathon. I ran a 125 flat. I think it was 125.04, like. And then my previous was like a 125.26. So I took like 20 seconds off it. I'd only become aware of that when I checked out my Strava. It's like new half marathon PB. So do you know what? I would really love to kind of obliterate 125 by like a good minute. Do you know what I mean? So
I'm sure you should be able to do that.
I hope so.
Especially if you did that with an extra 13 miles to go. I mean, if you can't take 4 seconds off it, what the fuck have you been doing?
Exactly that. To be fair, one thing though, I'm a bad foodie, me. So yeah, it's not been uncommon for me to turn up to certain events a couple of kg heavier than I'd have liked.
Lovely. So Nick, the next thing I want to know about is this ultra that you did wearing a 20 kilo vest, because I feel like an ultra marathon is tough enough on its own. And just go, fuck it, I'll just stick an extra 20 kilos on it. I mean, I kind of know how you feel a little bit, kind of being there.
Yeah.
Mine was, so you know when you're talking about feeling out of place, like running amongst those people and they're all skinny, like gazelle type people. You're 80.5 kilos. I'm about an extra 20 kilos on top of that.
Oh, lovely.
I'm in the 3-digit club. And I turned up to an ultra marathon with one training run under my belt and essentially carrying everything I'd need for it on my back in a backpack that must have weighed at least 10 kilos. And I have never felt more out of place in my life. So
Jesus.
Why would you? I mean, I was essentially carrying everything because I had to. You voluntarily thought,
yeah,
let's whack this on. Go on. What? Why? How did it go?
It was horrendous, to be honest. So I'd done an ultra marathon before. I did a 40-mile run. That was 2021. That was that was after lockdown. I think we're coming out of the second lockdown, and I would raise money for 2 charities. And in lockdown, it's where pre-lockdown, I kind of discovered I was semi-good at running through CrossFit, to be honest. Because whenever there was a WOD on where there was any running, I'd do well in that one. Anything with skill base, I was shot. But anything with running, I'd do well. And like everyone in lockdown, all you could do was pretty much run. And I ran my first marathon in lockdown. I just got up one day, did it. My time was 3 hours 8 minutes. My first ever marathon. All I had was a breakfast, hydrated before, then went out and did it around the Guild Wheel and a little bit more. And then after that, people were like saying, "You've ran a marathon in 3 hours 8 minutes with no fueling. You've just gone and done it. That's like ridiculously impressive." And I didn't really realise. And then I thought, well, I've always wanted, since getting in recovery, I've always wanted to do a little bit of charity work for mental health and stuff like that. So I did a 40-mile run. And in lockdown, a girl who I was friends with and who I had very close friends with, she was very close friends to her, she committed suicide. And her family set up something called the Mary O'Gara Foundation. And at the time when I did my first charity run, the 40-miler, I didn't feel like it was the right time to kind of reach out and contact the family because it was still very new and stuff like that. And that the foundation, to understand them, was it really in its infancy. And it still is to a degree, but like really early stages. So I didn't contact them that time, but then later on in the year, I reached out to a family and I just said, I want to help you with a fundraiser to set some money up to get like the charity itself going. And we came up with it would have been Mary's 30th birthday, which was last May now. And we come up with the idea to run 30 miles for Mary. And then in my head, I just thought, well, why not have something like the 20 kilo vest, add that on, and that will represent the burden of like what people carry with them who are struggling. And if I'm honest with you, I went to Egypt 3 weeks before where with my partner's family, we got engaged out there. So I was doing a little bit of training, but I was so underprepared. And to answer your first question, how was it? It wasn't nice. It was the 40 miler was bad because I went out like a bull in a china shop. And I set off and I just got into a decent rhythm and I nearly got a sub 3 hour marathon on the 40 milers. By the time I did mile 9, in my head I was going, get a sub 3, and I'll deal with the consequences of exhaustion after. So the 40 were bad for that reason, but the 30 were bad. Just the vest itself. It was awkward. By the time I'd finished, it felt like someone had been continuously punching me in the stomach. All my shoulders were in bits. Yeah, it was really tough, like really tough. And me being me, I'd just done the David Goggins challenge in a 20 kilo vest again. So I seem to have a thing with vests. So me and Lenko have got an agreement. If I talk about any more ultras and I say I'm going to use this vest, he's going to crack me.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm tempted to do one and do one in a vest as well, just make it even more hellacious. So if you want to do that, I won't be running anything in fucking sub 3 hours. You can get stuck.
Yeah.
My procedure is more, I'll set off at the back and I'll see you later kind of thing.
Yeah, it's to be fair, when it's an event like that we set up like something called Mary's Day, which is happening again this year. I'm actually meant to be at a little bit of a foundation meeting tonight to talk about it. but like there was loads of people there. I'd say the adrenaline carried me through being kind of not ready, so to speak, because again, I came back a little bit heavier than I'd like. I like to run at about 77, 78 kilogram. I feel like I just feel great at that weight for running. I'm not too strong. Like I'm relatively strong, but like kind of I'm not pushing any PBs at that weight or anything like that on any of my lifts. But I feel great at that weight. But I come back from Egypt, and I just felt a little bit like heavier than I'd like. And I added that vest, so I was like really underprepared. But just the adrenaline and the occasion and the amount of people there, and then you remember the cause that you're doing it for, and it just carries you over. So yeah, that's I do kind of like the mental aspect of running. Do you know what I mean? Like, for all the zone 2 runs, for all the like the structured training, what we do, I always say like theory never covers the cost of admission. There's going to be a time in the run and stuff like that where it's all out the window. You're left with yourself. Like I've just done the Manchester Marathon in under 3 hours, and I cannot tell you how much pain I was in for the last 4 miles of that marathon. Like it was just horrendous, and kind of like that's where the mental side of it comes in, and the ability to sit with discomfort kicks in. So yeah, that's kind of something I do. To be fair, I wouldn't advise.
Just going back to that ultra, like you say, you were thinking, get the marathon, the first 26.2 miles, get that done under 3.
Yeah.
How long did it take?
Not the full 40.
No, like that first bit of the run. Like,
all right. So
how long did that take? And then how long did the full?
Right. So Chris was there.
Get under 3.
Yeah. So I had a coach, Ben Aiken, who's again an unbelievable athlete. Does Ironmans and stuff. He's actually, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Alanis' partner. Great coach, really clever fella. He was like, right, he's into run. He come out with me for the first 2 miles, and I set off from this gym, and I turned around acting like an idiot, going, "Way, I've done it," pretending just messing around. And then once Ben left, I picked my pace up and started feeling great. And I missed the sub 3 hour marathon by 56 seconds. If I wouldn't have done that, and my second mile would have run it a little bit quicker, I'd have got it. So that's haunted me for ages. But then, so that was 3 hours and 56 seconds. And then the last 13 or 14 miles, it took me, I come in just under 5 hours, 4:55. So yeah, it took me 2 hours to run a half marathon from that to that point, essentially. So yeah, I crashed and burned. It again wasn't very nice at all. I hit the wall, and it was just put one foot in front of the other.
Chris, I don't know about you, bro. I'd take a 2 hour half marathon, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
I'd accept that right now. So,
do you know, just before we like kind of move on, I have a client called Jim, and in December he signed up to Manchester Marathon. His running experience was 29-minute 5K, and he run the Manchester in 3:53, which in 4 months of prep is absolutely bonkers, if I'm honest with you. Going from like being able to, when he did a 29-minute 5K, he just went out to run and accumulated 5K in 29 minutes. But like, at one point we was like, he ran a 1:45 half marathon in the prep we were doing, and it's always weird. Like you always go, you'll be happy with that, and he's like, "Do you reckon we could get like a 3:30 marathon?" And I was like, maybe. Do you know, like just getting a bit carried away with it. So like that's just in my nature. Like I'm never happy. I'm always like, so in the Manchester Marathon, like I wanted this sub 3, it haunted me for 2 years. And I was on for a 2:51, and due to some stuff, I couldn't. My pace dropped in the last 4 miles due to cramping. And during it, I was like, I have to do this today because I can never be in this amount of pain again. So I got over the finish line 2:56, checked my Instagram, and people had tracked me on the run. And I seen I was on for a 2:51, but due to these issues, not being able to take on gels and stuff like that, that's why I cramped so badly. My head just went, I'm going for a sub 2:50. An hour or so before, I was like, I can't be in this much pain again. It's like I'm never satisfied. So it's part of that's kind of in me. It's just in me. I'm always like, let's go. So I don't know how I'm going to feel when I start to kind of athletically dip, if you will. Like I'm hitting 30 now, so you can kind of say this might be the peak. And then after 32, it's all downhill. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
I hope not, because I'm only 30. I'm 30 and I don't feel like I'm done yet, so it better not be right.
Yeah, that's it, innit? That's it.
Anyway, Chris, I know you need to get going. You got any final remarks or comments for Nick before you shoot off?
That's a great question. Let me just check the notes as to what else I had.
It's all right. We're waiting. We'll keep waiting. It's all on you.
I don't think there was anything else. I just think on top of obviously the stuff we said about what Nick's done personally, like when I first met him. So obviously just to go back to that, when I told you, obviously you'd basically transformed. You just looked fucking so much healthier. You just looked.
Yeah.
You'd obviously lost weight. You'd got in really good shape, and you just looked so much healthier, mate. So fair respect for just that alone, and then obviously even more respect for the crazy, crazy running.
Yeah.
6 years clean, mate. Fucking unreal.
Yeah.
All mad shit. So keep doing what you're doing. And then the other thing is, obviously, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Alex, but I was saying about how Nick's one of the people where, like, and I think I said this to you, Nick, actually, a couple of weeks ago, like, the fitness industry is stained with people who are trying to make money and they're more than happy to just sell their souls and, like, put people through shit. And they're not actually trying to help anyone at all. But Nick's the total opposite of that. Nick's actually, like, delivering people what they need for health and longevity or to actually improve like their performance and lifestyle and stuff like that, and not willing to go
that's
to
kind
the
of
depths.
something that's something I'm trying to do, and that's where like my fascination with like strength and conditioning comes. And there's probably a hell of a lot of stuff. Like I have no issue with the thing is with you could say with the fitness industry. I have no issue with people getting stuff wrong. There is probably stuff I've mentioned on this podcast where I'll listen to it again, or you might go back. Actually, that's not right what you said there, and etc. etc. But you can forgive that. It's kind of when it's just when, like you say, it's people out for gain all the time, and it can really be a minefield of like delivering what someone perceives they want, and then knowing that actually what you may need is the opposite of what you want. I find the longer I stay in personal training, so that's something like I'm trying, like why I'm so keen on like kind of performance and stuff like that, and just my further education as a personal trainer. It's always something that I've always working with coaches. I'm always trying to invest in certain courses and stuff like that, just to because I just don't want to deliver bad practice, essentially. But you know, we all get stuff wrong, I suppose. And like I say, probably stuff I've mentioned today, or even I will mention again, which might be wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's just trying to always strive to just be that a little bit better person, bit better a coach, etc.
Yeah, well, I think we all get stuff wrong. I mean, I don't, but
yeah,
I'm joking. I do definitely get things wrong. Just speak to the missus; she'll tell you.
yeah,
but yeah, I think we all get stuff wrong, and it's a case of can you recognize your faults and be open to debate. Unlike some coaches who obviously we mentioned at the start, if you're just simply going to block people and stop them from contacting you anyway,
yeah,
to have a reasoned discussion with them. I mean, you know, just because you've got PhD after your name doesn't actually give you the level of credibility that 20 years of experience of getting results with actual people in the real world.
yeah.
It's just a different metric. So you can't measure everyone with the same yardstick, but you should at least be between them.
100%.
Anyway, Chris, I know you need to get going anyway, don't you? So we will let you shoot off. We'll see you later, bro.
See you later, Lenko.
Pleasure speaking to you both.
Yeah, always.
Right then, mate.
Miles better now. It's just me and you.
Oh, it's dreaming it.
The real brains behind the operation.
It's all right because he won't listen to this anyway, so it won't. You can now we can get to the real crux of it. We can get to the truth now. You can say whatever. He'll never know. He'll never know.
Yeah.
So what's it like training with Chris? No. Anyway, the main thing, and I suppose like the final question that I've got for you that I really want to get into, but feel free to be as open about as much of it as you want. But how do you go from the point of, you know, I don't know whether to describe it as a pretty severe addiction to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
that lifestyle. How do you go from that to, being as cool, calm, collected, calculated about smashing marathon times and being as heavily invested in fitness, which is the opposite end of the scale as you are now? Like, how do you bridge that gap from essentially all over the place and despair and not necessarily giving a shit about anything to being all in on it?
I think you just you touched on something there. What you're saying is that despair. Use the word there, despair, and I had something called the gift of desperation, where just what I was doing, how I was living, it got to a place where I just couldn't live like that anymore. And without boring you with like the ins and the outs and etc., I just kind of got to a place where I was like, you tell me what to do so I don't do this anymore, and I'll do it. And that's where I kind of found recovery through a 12-step fellowship. Like, if people aren't aware of 12-step fellowships, like things about Alcoholics Anonymous, etc. And I go to Narcotics Anonymous, trying to be careful that I break any of the traditions here, but it's my personal anonymity, so I'm not too fussed about that. But yeah, I kind of go there, and that's where I still maintain my recovery now. I attend regular meetings and stuff like that. And then kind of as I've got into like marathon running, like as soon as I got clean and I kind of went into fitness, it was always something to kind of do, where I wanted to change the way I look, because I put on quite a bit of weight and stuff like that. Running, something I'd done for many years. But like my friends in recovery was like, you should be a personal trainer, you'd love it, and I was always like, no, I can't do that, wouldn't work, talk myself out of it, I don't know enough. And the only way I can describe it is like over the last 6 years, it's just been like this kind of gradual, almost process, if you will, of like I've just fell into it, and along the way you just learn little bits here and there, and now I'm just like in this place where I'm so far removed of how I used to behave and how I used to act, and it's like I said something on my Instagram the other day. It's like you can't create a new version of yourself dragging behind the old behaviors and habits of the person you're trying to escape. And over the years, I've just become further removed away from kind of the person I was when I was drinking, taking drugs, into kind of what I am about now. And like, I am about like kind of personal development and further like trying to always develop myself personally as a coach, a friend, a partner. And yeah, that's kind of how it's gone. And like the running is just always kind of been there. And the more I've kind of stayed clean, if you will, and been in recovery, which recovery is the backbone of my life, where without my recovery, I haven't got any of this. Like, without recovery, I will end up relapsing and drinking and taking drugs until I'm into oblivion again. So kind of with that as like the backbone of my life, it allows me to do these sort of things which I have a passion about, which is like running half marathons, running ultra marathons. I don't know how I found the passion in that, because sometimes I'll be doing these events and I'm like, I fucking pay to do this to myself, or I volunteer to do this. But like, yeah, it's it kind of just, I don't think about it in terms of how I've got here. It just happens. When you saw like kind of, not sound corny, I think Conor McGregor said it in something, is when you're so invested in something and you're so ambitious and you just love something so much, it kind of just happens. And the stuff that I try and take care of, which is like my recovery, my mental health and my relationships at home and stuff, like the rest of it just happens. And I'm just kind of on this little bit of a journey at the minute, where I suppose it's just seeing how far I can take things. Like, how good of a coach can I become? How good of a runner can, like, well, say a hybrid athlete can I become? Can I be an athlete who can pull a 200 kilo deadlift and run a sub 3 hour marathon or sub 250 marathon? It's just really kind of just embracing the journey. And like we're talking about it a little bit before, like how we get stuff wrong and stuff like that. And it's like, there's always a new study coming out, isn't there? Like, to say, actually, this way might be more effective. And the way we thought was right now is actually not as effective as potentially this new way. So I'm just kind of here for the journey and embracing it in all its aspects, and where there's going to be highs There's going to be laws. There's going to be times I get stuff really wrong. There're going to be times where I absolutely nail it and I get a load of stuff right, so to speak. And that's kind of the person I've tried to develop myself into on a daily basis, so to speak, where I'm someone who is always striving for continuous improvement. And ultimately, like sometimes the question I get asked is, "What you do a lot of running, Nick? What you're running away from?" Essentially, I'm running away from who I used to be. I want as much distance between me and that person as possible. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there, to be fair.
No, you did, and more. I mean, what kind? You know, I mean, there's a few things I want to pick up on there, but what you said at the end there, where people ask you like, "What are you running away from?" I think a lot of the times people will ask that about someone that's so heavily invested in their running as like a bit of a jokey thing, but it's like you must have a problem. Like, what are you running away from?
Yeah.
Like when you tell them the very honest answer of I'm running away from who I used to be. I want to get a million miles away from the person as I possibly can. What kind of response do you get to
that? To be fair, it's usually quite a positive one. Because like it kind of, again, this touches on other topics we've talked about during this podcast or this interview, whatever you want to call it. Like I want to make something abundantly clear to any potential listeners. What I do isn't the epitome of health. Do you know what I mean? It isn't like it's really hard to do. It is. So it's borderline obsessive, and I'm under no illusion of that. Like I know, like people look towards bodybuilding as a sport, and like it's really obsessive and quite unhealthy. But like I think other realms of trade, I think bodybuilding just been in the industry, like the gym industry, for so long. It was the go-to sport people did for ages. Do you know what I mean? Within the gym space, if you will. But now we're seeing people who are very obsessed with CrossFit and myself, like running and lifting and stuff like that. And it's like it's by no means healthy, but for me, to a certain degree, it's better than my other options. Do you know what I mean? I feel like if I didn't have this, I'm left to like other devices. I think like a lot of it does come down to like addiction, if I will. Like I don't see addiction as like just like I had a problem with drugs, but like my addiction's left that. It's just kind of manifested into something else, which is fitness. Do you know what I mean? I'm probably unhealthily obsessed to a degree.
Well, I think I want to go into that a little bit, because when people talk about obsession, it always gets related to like you're obsessed about something that it's not worth being obsessed about. Whereas, I suppose another word that you could use for it, it might be a passion, it might be like your primary driver, it might be one of your reasons for living, it might be something that you just excel at. But because it gets labeled of like you're obsessed with it, I think some people are obsessed with eating that should be. But I think when it comes to, we talk about the general health of the nation, suicide rates, male, female. You've got so many support groups, so many people off work with stress, so much going on in the world, especially post-COVID now, and people struggling, whether it's through self-esteem or just because of the rise of the internet and social media. People are taking a hammer. And I think if everybody found their obsession, if you like, or something they were obsessed in that they could actually fully invest in the way that I think I would suggest you have done that with fitness. That's fitness has just been your outlet. It's been for other people, it might be art, music, could be anything. But if everybody took a bit of time out and found their obsession and fell into the kind of realm that they exceed in and they excel in, I think there'd be far fewer problems with health, self-esteem.
100%. And it's like I can only speak on like as a man. Men need animals to hunt, like, and especially myself. Like I have to be like kind of going towards something. If I don't, like, it is that like you don't really move forward standing still. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like we're talking about like obsession and stuff. Like when I first missed that sub-3 hour marathon, it took me 2 years, a lot of setbacks, injuries, training wrong, and then eventually signing up to this Manchester Marathon in December of 2022, I think it were, and going, right, I'm going into like a training block here, if you will, or like, and I'm going to aim to PB this marathon and run a sub-3, like, and I went and did it, and I kind of, as Chris said, I've gone away, invested in my own kind of in coaches to build up like a knowledge, if you will, to be able to do what I wanted to do. I could not give a shit if someone says I'm obsessed, because like the second I crossed that line, it was worth every little bit of obsession, money invested, nights sat up thinking about it, just being totally consumed with it. Within like that 4 months of training, it was worth every single second. And so like I say, I'd rather be obsessed with something like that than not. Do you know what I mean? And if people ask me, like, if you want, I don't have a balanced lifestyle. My life is pretty much built around fitness, health and fitness, if you will. You could probably remove the health out of it at times. It can probably isn't sometimes the most healthy thing. Running 30 miles with 20 kilos on you ain't the healthiest thing to do. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's just what I've chose to do, and I love it. And to be fair, I'll probably do it until the old knees and stuff might say, actually, Nick, we've had enough here. But then fuck it, I'll swim. I will. Do you know what I mean?
Your body will tell you when it's time, won't it? But
yeah.
I think the key message there is, like, if you want to exceed at anything or be elite at anything, you have to be obsessive. Like, that doesn't matter whether it's fitness, might be work and career based.
Yeah.
Could be like even family. Like, if you want to have a really good family, great relationship with your wife, your kids, you have to be obsessed with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it for me is always like, I've got a massive fear of not being good enough, or not being, like, even in my job, like, not knowing enough. And like, even I'll probably if I listen back to this podcast a year from now, I might go, what the fuck was I talking about? Do you know what I mean? Or like, because I'm always like constantly trying to learn a little bit more, be around people who know a lot more, which, to be fair, is quite a few people. So yeah, I think like bridging the gap between the person who was like in a bad way with drink and drugs to a person who kind of strives to hit certain physical endeavors like half marathons and running, like being a self-employed in a small business. Like, how have I bridged the gap? It's just kind of embracing, trying to strive for excellence as much as I possibly can, and that isn't not attainable all the time. I don't think it's achievable all the time, especially for me. If I'm just being bluntly honest, but more often than not, you're just trying to put your best foot forward as consistently as you possibly can. And that's kind of my experience.
Do you mind if I ask, like, when it was at its worst with you drinking and drugs and stuff, like, what was that like? Like, what were you doing? How was it affecting you? What was your general day-to-day lifestyle like at that point?
So for me, it was continuous days of drinking. Like, it would be 3 or 4 days out drinking consistently, minimal sleep. I'd take hundreds of pounds worth of cocaine, isolating my room and stuff like that as well. So if I ever went out with friends who would do this, because things, who were drug addicts, we hang around with other drug addicts. So that was hanging around with people who kind of did the same stuff as me. They'd go out for days and stuff like that. And even like when they'd call it a day, I'd go back to my house, continue drinking, shoplifting, whatever I needed to do to get ways and means to get more drugs or more alcohol. And I'd literally use until I physically couldn't use anymore. There were times where I'd like be retching, like I'd be sick so much, violently sick, I'd retch blood up, like I'd take the lining off my tummy. Obviously, like when you're retching, you can burst blood vessels in your throat, and I'd see like streaks of blood in my sick, and then I'd end up having to go to hospital. Been a couple of times I wish I could get them up on screen, where like they kept me in hospital to detox me. Like, I'd become physically dependent. Like, I'd have withdrawal symptoms, essentially, shakes, sweats, all that kind of stuff, and they'd keep me in, put me on a vitamin B drip. It's chlorhexidine, so it's a benzodiazepine, I think, Librium for short, which is something they give you to level out withdrawal symptoms. I think I've got that right. It's been quite a few years since I've worked in services or had to take anything like that. So it's like it were rough, and then if I'd be like, I'm never doing that again. This for me is the insanity of like someone with a drink or drug problem or addiction. There'd be times where I'd stop, and I'd stop for a week or so, maybe. I'd be like, I'm never doing that ever again. Like, I can't live like. And then all of a sudden, I just become obsessed and compulsed to like get drugs or have a drink or whatever. And I'd be out, and then I'd be like, I'll just go out for one. It'll just be one. I'll go home. 3 or 4 days later, again, I'd pass, and I'd be there again thinking, how the fuck has this happened? And that's all it was. It was just flat out using, grab a day or two here or there, and then, just wash, rinse, and repeat. And I weren't in the best of health whatsoever, to be fair. So, it were rough.
And I know I've spoken before about sort of like, it was the all or nothing mentality of like, if you're not going to drink, decide there and then beforehand. Don't aim to go out and I know a few people do this and go, oh, it's all right. And PTs coach it as well. They say, oh no, you can go just have one, and it's like, but it's never fucking one, is it?
Yeah. Like honestly,
99%, and you've got a chink in the armor or a crack in the dam or whatever, like as an analogy and a way of thinking about it and visualizing it. That's no good, because that is going to lead to an absolute cascade of anything could happen afterwards.
Yeah, it's that's something like I see you do see. You got to have a bit of balance in there and stuff like. It's something I've said in the past, and I'm honest with you, especially within the fitness realm, the people who would like go and do amazing things within the fitness journey, whether it's like they drop substantial weight or the like Jim, for example, my client who went from 29-minute 5K to a 3:53 marathon, and unless you're into long distance running, to do that in 4 months is frightening. To do that, and the one thing a lot of people will do to get that, they will literally cut alcohol clean out their life. And it's not, and you don't kind of have a balanced approach to it. You go all in sort of thing. Because I used to be in services, and like I'd have drug workers say, "Why don't you just have like 3 drinks and go home?" I'm like, "You're not getting this, are you? I have 1 drink and I can't physically stop." From background information, like my dad, who's passed away when I was 9, he was an alcoholic. He was in long-term recovery when he passed away of cancer, and my mum is an alcoholic as well. So you could say I was fucked from birth with that one. So I just kind of I've never moderated my drinking. I never had the ability to moderate it. I've always was. As soon as I picked up drink at like 15 on the parks and stuff, always the first one to get pissed and pass out. Always take it too far. And I get myself in like serious trouble as well. Not so much with the police, but with local like people you wouldn't really want to like get in trouble with, and people who I'd harm people. I'd always take it to harm my family. I'd steal all that sort of stuff from my family and that. So I never had that like people who have a healthy relationship, if there's such thing with alcohol or drugs, if you will. Not like I don't think you can have a healthy relationship with things like cocaine at all, but like they just would do it and then go home. When me, I just never had that ability. It was just I'd start and that made me gone. Do you know what I mean? So it was time, and I just thankfully found my recovery and my way to get out of it, to be fair.
I was going to say, one of the things you mentioned right back at the start was that you just you went out, you went for a run, and you said whilst you were out running, you said you felt safe.
Yeah.
How much of a factor do you think that played?
What, in continuing running?
In shifting your mindset, like keeping you on.
Oh, yeah, massive, because massive.
I know for a lot of people, like when you talk about how do you feel when you exercise, that is not one of the words that they would use. And it's one of the things that I think has really, really stood out, because I think if you don't, I generally don't really think about my personal safety on a day-to-day basis. So I can't really imagine what it would be like to go out into an environment or be performing some form of activity and all of a sudden feel safe.
Yeah. It's just massive. Like it's something something I crave, because obviously I just touching on like grew up with my mum who was an alcoholic, or is an alcoholic. Obviously she don't drink at the minute, but like I'm an addict. I'm an addict in recovery, but I'm still an addict. Do you know what I mean? And we lived in a home where like it was abusive, a lot of like not physical violence, but like emotional violence and shouting and stuff like that. So I think just growing up all my life, dad wasn't really present. Just craved that safety of what you would get from a parent, like your mum or your dad. Like that was never there for me. So yeah. And then like just for some reason when I was running, I just felt like I can't even describe it. I felt safe, and even now, like it's just my life feels really simple when I'm running. Even like now, kind of, if you will want to call it somewhat of a competitive runner, it's just me, my running trainers, and a distance in front of me, which I've got to do. And like my life's quite simple. I know I touched on this. I've got ADHD, and it's one of the only times my head's a little bit quiet and I'm able to focus on the task at hand. Like even now, my head's spinning. Like I'm thinking, did I mention that right? Was I right on that? Do you know what I mean? Like got proper overly thinking about it. But yeah, so that's like kind of what running has given me. And it's hard to even describe the feeling of like why it made me feel safe. Perhaps from some trauma, maybe when I was a bit younger. But yeah, it's still exactly the same to this day.
Yeah. I think that for me, when you said that just really hit home. I was like, holy shit, like I can't even comprehend how that would feel. So,
because one thing I will say about running, and this is like quite deep, if you will, a bit hippie-ish, but like it's in a marathon. Like at some point, it's gonna get really fucking hard. It gets really, really hard, and then it's just a case of putting one foot in front of the other until you finish whatever distance it is, whether it's a half marathon, whatever it may be. But like if you just have that ability to put one foot in front of the other, you will get through it and you will get that reward. And I think that's like quite I always relate that back to life, like where there's been times where life has been like really difficult, really stressful, really like you know your back's kind of against the rope sort of thing. But if you just like take that lesson what I've learned through running and I apply it to my life, and it's like just get through this, just get through this next day, get through this next hour, you know, you get through it, and then on the other side of that there's a reward, and you know you learn, you grow. Again, it's that growth and kind of personal development sort of thing. That's what I've kind of got from running, as well as that safe feeling. It's just again that tapping into the identity of someone who's always striving for personal development.
And then you mentioned as well the sort of the simplicity of running, just like grabbing your trainer, going for a run, just being able to dial in and focus on one thing rather than having a load of stuff rattling around in your head. And I think, I mean, you'll probably come across this day in, day out anyway, won't you? But a lot of people generally overcomplicating fitness, going into it, like dipping into realms of concurrent training that they don't even need to be messing with, rather than just simplifying. Just go out, do 5K, whatever pace you want, or do zone 2, or just go for a 40-minute walk, or you know, rather than just simplify everything, do that one thing and then build on it from there. Because one of the key things that you've hinted on as well before is that, you know, from just enjoying running, being really good at it, and all your friends saying that you should go and be a PT, and you were saying that it wasn't like a big snapshot moment where you thought, right, I'm going to go and do that. You said like everything fell into place, and it was just a gradual shift over time. And obviously for a long journey in this kind of like the spectrum, or the two bridges that you spanned across from one point to the other, it's a pretty big shift, isn't it? Like it's not
absolutely. And it's like even when I became a personal trainer, like I was quite well known in Preston for charity work, long distance running and stuff. And like quite a few people was like, "Oh, could you prep me for this marathon?" I'm like, "No." Like I didn't back myself, like, because for so long I just kind of put my shoes on and just ran, and kind of over years without knowing built up this like aerobic base, if you will, and got a pretty decent runner. But I didn't really have any. There wasn't a method to the madness, so to speak. Like I just did it. Like it was kind of like really sometimes like it's like said principle in it. Specific adaptation to impose demands. You do something enough, you will get pretty good at it. And like I was running twice a day, or like 4 or 5 times a week, etc., and all that lot. So I just got good at it kind of by accident, if you want it. Not accident, but do you know what I mean? It just happened. And then when people are asking me to try and prep for marathons, it's like, no, I don't like back myself to do that. Go to this guy. But now I'm like, yeah, fuck it, let's go. Do you know what I mean? We'll give it a go. And again, like that's just happened in a 14-month period of becoming a personal trainer from someone who would be like, no, I'm not doing that. So like, yeah, let's go now. Do you know what I mean? All through just putting a pair of shoes on and getting going. So that's again just that personal development at play, if you will.
I think that's a perfect note to end this episode on as well. So
yeah, man.
Where can people find you, and is there anything else that you want to add yourself as well, mate? Like where you're on social media and
yeah, so I've got an Instagram page handle for that. It's ndavis_coaching, ndavis NDAVIS, not Davies, Davis. I'm on there. I'm on Facebook as well. Just that's under kind of a personal account. But I try and stay away from social. Well, not stay away from it, but like I can only really work Instagram if I'm honest. I'm not the most tech savvy. I haven't got TikTok. Twitter was a bad combination for me, to be fair. And they're just finally on a final point. If I've butchered any of the terminologies, I knew what I meant at the time. But yeah, or if I've got it wrong, I do apologise. We're all learning the way, aren't we, I suppose.
That's it. Anyway, thank you for coming on, mate. Thank you for giving up your time and sitting down with me and Chris for as long as you have. I really appreciate it. And
more than
obviously in the next 3 weeks, work hard. Good luck in your marathon.
Yeah, I hope so. If I don't PB, it's your brother's fault.
Yeah,
simple as that. That's the great thing about having a coach. You don't. If I don't PB, it definitely is his fault. So yeah.
So if that doesn't, if that happens and you don't PB, what we'll do, we'll get him back on the show with you.
Yeah, explain why, and then on live on this podcast, I will pot him and hire you in front of him. All right, mate.
Well, that won't happen anyway, but
yeah, man.
Look for it. And
nice one, mate.
Keep up doing an awesome job with your clients as well. Cause,
I'll do my best, mate. I'll definitely do my best.
Fitness definitely needs more better PTs.
No worries. I will see you soon, mate. Thank you.
Nice one, Nick. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Nick Davis. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode. Hopefully, you've taken loads of useful information, loads of tips from it, and ultimately, maybe even just a little bit of inspiration from Nick's story and what he's been through and where he's heading to. Obviously, we're all on our own kind of journey in a way with our own difficulties, and I think that's just a really good example of it. Doesn't matter where you are at the current moment in time, you can push through and find your obsession, not just your passion, your obsession. Find something you're obsessed about. So until next time, that's it from me and Chris. And if you want to get in touch with us, obviously you can find Nick from today's episode. You can find him on Instagram. If you go ndavis_coaching on Instagram, you'll find him. As always, me and Chris are Alex_Lenkowski_performance or Chris_Lenkowski_performance on Instagram. And feel free to message us on there. Find us on YouTube at Elite Football Conditioning. And we will be back again soon with another episode of The Lenko Show. This is it for episode 55. Lenko